Most people assume that waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning is just a normal part of getting older, something to accept and push through. But there is a specific physiological reason it happens, and it has almost nothing to do with the explanations that get repeated endlessly online. It is not about aging in a vague, general sense. It is not about your mind racing or your bedroom being too warm. It is about something that begins happening in your legs hours before you ever pull back the covers, and understanding that one mechanism changes everything about how you approach sleep after 60. I am Dr. Leanna, and I work with adults in their 60 seconds, 70 seconds, and 80 seconds who have spent years convinced that their bodies simply forgot how to sleep. What I find, almost without exception, is that their bodies have not forgotten anything. They are just responding rationally to a problem that nobody ever explained to them. Here's what that problem actually is. Starting somewhere in your late 50 seconds and becoming more pronounced through your 60 seconds, the veins in your legs begin to lose their structural efficiency. The small one-way valves inside those veins, whose entire job is to push blood upward against gravity back toward your heart, start to weaken. The vein walls themselves become less elastic. And so, throughout the course of a normal day of sitting, standing, moving around, fluid begins to accumulate in your lower legs. You may have noticed that your ankles look slightly puffier in the evening than they do in the morning. That is not incidental. That is a visible sign of a process that is also happening in your calves, in the deep tissue of your lower legs, in ways that do not show up in a mirror, but that absolutely show up at 2 in the morning. When you lie down flat to sleep, your body recognizes almost immediately that there is a significant amount of fluid sitting in your legs that needs to be redistributed. Your kidneys begin processing it, your heart rate adjusts, and most critically, your autonomic nervous system, the system responsible for keeping you in that deep, slow, restorative sleep you need, gets pulled into a state of low-level activation to manage all of this internal redistribution work. That activation is what pulls you out of sleep. Not a sound, not a dream, not anything you did wrong. Just your own cardiovascular system doing its job at the worst possible time. Now here is the part I want you to sit with for a moment, because this is where things shift. If you could give your body the opportunity to drain that fluid before you lie down, before your nervous system has to manage it in the dark at 1 in the morning, the entire cascade does not happen. Your heart receives blood more efficiently as soon as you go horizontal. Your nervous system reads that efficiency as a signal that everything is stable and it is safe to go deep. And the waking up, that maddening, ceiling staring, leg restless waking up, it simply stops being necessary. The way you do that is with a position that takes 3 minutes, requires nothing but a wall, and works with your body's own gravitational mechanics rather than against them. I want to tell you about a patient first, though, because I think hearing a real experience makes the physiology land differently. Margaret Calloway, 71 years old, a retired school librarian from outside of Portland. Margaret had been dealing with fragmented sleep for going on 6 years when she came to see me. She had tried every supplement that had ever been recommended to her. She had purchased 2 different mattresses. She had a strict no screens after 8 rule that she followed religiously. And still, without fail, she was awake between 1:30 and 2:30 every single night, sometimes for 20 minutes, sometimes for well over an hour. During one of our appointments, I asked her to describe what the waking actually felt like in her body. She said her legs felt like they were filled with something, heavy, almost buzzing, like they wanted to move, but moving did not help. I asked if her calves ever felt tender by evening. She said yes, and she had always assumed it was from walking. I explained what was actually happening, and I asked Margaret to try one thing before we discussed anything else. 3 minutes against the wall before bed for 2 weeks. Nothing else changed about her routine. She came back 2 weeks later, and the first thing she said was that she had started waking up at 5:30 and actually feeling finished sleeping. Not waking up exhausted at 4 and just giving up on the night. Finished. Rested. That word, finished, is something I hear from patients who finally get this right, and it is almost always the first word they use. Here is how to do it. Go to any wall in your home. Your bedroom wall is ideal because you can move directly from the floor into bed. Sit sideways, close to the base of the wall, then slowly lower your back to the floor while swinging your legs up so they rest against the wall. Your body will form roughly a right angle. Your back is flat, your legs are elevated, your arms can lie wherever they feel natural. If your hamstrings are tight, a slight softness in the knees is completely fine. The position does not require perfect geometry. It requires that your legs are meaningfully above the level of your heart. Set a timer for 3 minutes and simply stay there. What is happening during those 3 minutes is not subtle, even though it feels quiet. Blood and fluid that spent the entire day pooling against gravity in your calves is now flowing back toward your core. Venous return, the technical term for blood moving back to the heart through the veins, improves within the first minute and continues improving throughout. Your heart rate drops slightly because it is now receiving adequate volume without having to strain. And the nervous system, which was gearing up to manage all of this redistribution overnight, begins to receive signals that the situation is already resolved. It can power down. It can let you stay deep. Some people notice a gentle warmth or mild tingling in their legs during this position. That is circulation moving the way it is supposed to move, and it is a good sign. If your lower back feels uncomfortable, fold a small towel and place it under your hips. If you have a known history of blood clots, uncontrolled heart failure, or glaucoma, please speak with your physician before beginning this practice. I want you to know what to expect as you move through the first 2 weeks, because the changes happen in a reliable sequence, and it helps to know they are coming. Within the first 3 nights, most people notice that the restlessness in their legs at bedtime feels softer. The heaviness is still there, but it is quieter, less insistent. The body is arriving at the pillow in a better state than it was. By the end of the first week, the middle of the night waking often becomes shorter or less complete. Where you once lay awake for an hour, you might surface briefly and slide back into sleep within minutes because the trigger that was pulling you fully awake has been addressed before bed. By day 14, the people who have been consistent describe something that genuinely moves me every time I hear it. They say sleep feels like it did when they were younger. Not perfect, not dreamless, just real. Like the night actually gave them something instead of taking it away. Before I finish, I want to ask you a direct question, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. What time do you typically wake up at night? Write the actual time. You will notice, reading through those answers, that certain numbers appear over and over. There is a physiological reason for that clustering, and it connects directly to what I have explained today about the timing of your body's fluid redistribution cycles. Pay attention to those patterns. They are telling you something accurate about what your body is doing. If you know someone over 60 who has been living with broken sleep and has started to accept it as permanent, please share this with them. Not because this is a complicated solution, because it is finally the correct explanation for what is actually going wrong. Tonight, before you get into bed, find your wall and set a 3-minute timer. That is the only commitment for today. If you want to make this a 30-day practice, here is all it takes. Same wall, same 3 minutes, within half an hour of getting into bed, every night for 30 days. The people who do this consistently stop doing it out of discipline very quickly. They keep doing it because they have felt the difference in how they wake up the next morning, and that feeling is more convincing than anything I could ever tell you in a video. If this gave you something new, something that finally made the waking up make sense, subscribe now, because next week I am going to cover what I consider the missing second piece of this puzzle. There is a mineral that the majority of adults over 60 are chronically low in, and its specific role in the body during nighttime hours is to keep blood vessels open and the nervous system calm enough to sustain deep sleep. Most people have never been tested for it. Most of the food sources that websites list as rich in this mineral are actually poorly absorbed by the aging digestive system, which means eating more of the supposedly right foods is often not solving the problem. That video comes next week, and it builds directly on everything we covered today. I'm Dr. Lena, and I will see you there.